All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. This is episode 36, and today it's just Dylan and I, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff, but I do want to plug a couple things before we get started. First off, the pre-order for the Within Tolerance t-shirts ends this coming Friday, so this episode comes out on Wednesday, so you got a couple more days to go over to my website, BrickTactical.com, go over to the clothing section, and pick out a Within Tolerance t-shirts. We have 3 colors right now. Once the t-shirt pre-order itself is over, we're only going to be offering the dark. It's actually a charcoal gray color. So just to make it easier on us, that's all we're going to be stocking. So don't worry. Once the pre-order is over, you'll still be able to get t-shirts down the line, but it's only going to be that one color. So if you like the other 2 colors, go get them while you can, because we're probably not going to be doing those simply because the other one's just so much more popular. And then second of all, next week we have Tony from Air Turbine Spindles coming on, and I have actually talked to him, met with him a couple times. He came out to my shop about, I want to say 6 months ago, last summer sometime, and I tested out the Air Turbine. It's basically a air-driven spindle speeder, so I tested out a 50,000 RPM spindle, and it's really cool. It's interesting technology. He's a really cool guy. He's got some very interesting stories. Like I was telling Dylan, how he brought, I don't think this is accurate, but it was something crazy, like a couple month cycle time down to like a couple weeks. It was like just insane improvements in efficiency for some of these big companies like Toyota, Google, Apple. So he has some really cool stories, and I'm really excited to have him on. So we'll have him on next Tuesday, and you'll see that episode next Wednesday.
Yeah, it should be
Without
fun.
further ado, we have Dylan here. So, Dylan, go for it. What's new?
So let's see. The orange update. We're still waiting on this fixture plate. I don't know if I think I've said last week, or I guess last week we talked to Tom. So I guess our fixture plate came back from anodize and had issues with it. Outside processing issues like we all experience. So they're remaking it, and so we're still a couple weeks out. But they sent the vices ahead, so we could start planning with those and looking at them, assembling them, and like they are great looking vices. I'm super excited to play around with them. I actually the day I got them, I had no way of putting them in the machine, but I had like I had an order of 5 or 6 parts that were all either one part each or 2 parts each, and they would have been absolutely perfect in those vices. So I already can see how it's going to help our workflow. Like it would have been great to be able to load either both pieces of a 2-piece order or 2 different parts and 2 different vices and just post out probing and cycles and all that right to the machine. So I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully we can get all that squared away in the next couple weeks is what it sounds like. um, and yeah, so speaking of probing, I've been doing some more research and playing around with the code on how to post out probing from one work offset and then probe another work offset and set that work offset and then have your program come off of that work offset. And actually, there's a pretty much just a page on Autodesk that tells you exactly how to do it. Like here's where it is, here's how to do it, and I just want to play with the code a little more and get comfortable with that because that's coming down the line here pretty soon.
So, what's the benefit of that? I'm just trying. So, that's like you could probe G54, and then within that program, you could probe like G55.
Yeah, so I can set like if I have the model of my subplate and all my vices in Fusion already, and I'm programming off of that entire model, I can have G54 be the 0 point that's like under one of my deltas, and then G55 be the actual part program coming off like the corner of the stock.
Okay.
And so then if I'll always have G54 set in my machine, and I can literally just post code from Fusion to the machine and hit go, and it'll know, it'll know what that stack up is already and where to go to probe my stock for op1. So there's no
Gotcha.
manual finding of G54 or G55 for op1 anymore.
That's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, even cutting soft jaws, all that stuff, I'll have models of my soft jaws in there. I'll be able to just use a joint to tell them how far the jaws are apart in the vise, and then just post out probing routines to pick up the center of that vise and go. All of that stuff will be more or less automatic. I'll just have to watch, the first probing cycle and be like, yep, that didn't crash and looked like it did what it did. And then everything's golden pretty much.
So are you gonna just probably have to change your workflow as far as like modeling probably more stuff in Fusion, but that's not too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to come up with a lot of templates that I'll just bring into, or I'll resave out as that part number and just bring in the part model and make it, one giant assembly every time I program a part now. And like, I'll still be able to do onesie, twosie, easy stuff too, if I want to. But I think overall it'll make things a lot easier.
Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be really cool.
Yeah. I'm super excited. I mean, the whole reason that we went down this path was to maximize the time that I have in the shop. And if I can, we're already posting programs more or less directly to the brother. Like I just have to jump into my FTP program and send it over. And then I can just walk over, turn my rapid down a little bit and hit cycle start. And, as long as my tools are loaded and set, which most of the time they are now, or if not, Brad can be loading and setting tools while I'm finishing the program and then walk over, hit cycle start and have a part.
In theory, could you set in Fusion a like a retouch off of all the tools in the carousel before the cycle runs?
I think so. Well, I know I can definitely put it in my post.
Yeah,
I could have a manual NC that if I can have the post look for a manual NC that, let's say, says touch off tools in operation, and it would parse all of the tools that were used in the operation and then go ahead and set them. So
that might be kind of nice.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it would definitely enhance accuracy for sure.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering like if you're loading 1 through 5 or whatever, but 5 through 10 are already good to go and it's just like I don't know, you could just it's one less thing you have to do cuz then instead of doing the probing cycle and the routine and then loading your program, I guess it's just the program. It's all built in, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's not a bad idea. I'll have to play around with that.
So, I don't know. That might be something to look into.
Yeah, and then so we did a massive spring cleaning, I guess we're gonna call it. I'm hoping this is gonna be a yearly thing now, but all of Sunday was pretty much dedicated to cleaning, and like we went
Really?
from. So we have 3 engines being worked on in the shop. I got
Whoa.
one for my engine swap. Brad's got one for one of his cars and one for his other car. And like we moved enough, like we bought another one of those shelves from Costco that I raved about 2 episodes ago, and put that between the kitty and the brother, and then put a bunch of stuff that we had all, we put all of our coolant barrels on there. We had a few water barrels for when we were using Synergy. We put those up on there, and just cleaned up a bunch of space. And then we moved the engines back into the back corner of the shop. And so like now, like the bay where the garage door is, we can now like get a car in there. Whereas before I was like full of engines and our mist collector that's still not installed and our pallet jack and like all this other stuff. And so it was so nice. And like, yeah, we spent pretty much all day. Like we had to pick up some furniture for Brad earlier in the day. And then we went to Costco and bought a few of those shelving units because we're going to redo our material rack as well. And yeah, once we got that done, like it feels so good in there. Like I feel like I've, to quote Step Brothers, I've got so much room for activities now. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things that like you don't really think about as a business owner, but like we just kept grinding so hard, and like Brad's always been the cleaner one of us. Like I just come in and like screw shit up, and
The dirty machinist in
well, yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. Like I make parts and I get them done, but like I leave a whirlwind behind myself, and like I've gotten a lot better, but it was nice for both of us just to buckle down for an entire day and get the shop super clean. And like we pulled all the anti-fatigue mats up and mopped the entire back corner of the shop between the brothers and behind the old brother. And yeah, it looks fantastic now, and just feels like I feel much more proud of our shop. And like if people came by, I'd feel much more proud of showing them our shop. So it was great, and I'm gonna try to make it a yearly thing at least.
Yeah, now it's just a matter of keeping it up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which I've been a lot better about, putting things away and making sure things are clean before I leave. you know how it is. It's tough. Like when you're leaving the shop at, well, I mean, I guess you're at home, but like when I'm leaving the shop at midnight or 2, like the last thing I want to do is spend 15 or 20 minutes sweeping up.
Oh yeah.
So it's tough, but I've definitely been getting better about it. And now that it's super clean, I want to keep it that way for sure.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And then let's see what else. Oh, I had some. So speaking of machines and stuff, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago I said that we were using the kitty to do fixture plate stuff, like for larger flat pieces. And that was like the only thing we've been using the kitty for recently. Well, I had another order of larger thin plate work, and I just got so fed up with using the kitty. Like the last time I used it, I was like, this is it just feels old and terrible. And like I know that like it's a great machine. It made our business. I actually really do love the machine, but like when I'm trying to get stuff done really quickly, it's like, oh, I've got to sit here and manually set tools, and like the coolant in it is still synergy, and it's just getting like kind of not soupy, but like um sticky, I guess. Like it gets
Yeah.
kind of sticky, and I don't know. It was just a pain to use to do like onesie twosie stuff, and so I ended up just buying a big piece of Mike 6 the other day and just clamping it in both of our vices in the brother and decking it and using it for all of the plate work this weekend. And oh, it made things so much nicer. And it made me realize like how much I'm gonna love doing plate work in there when I've got the 0 points and can just drop on a fixture plate and go.
You did that in the New Brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had my double station in there, and then I stole the jaw carrier and jaws from the um, aluminum 6-inch one, so that way I could put the Talon grips on the outside.
Okay.
And so between those two, I was able to span it and grab the entire thing. It was a 12 by 16 by inch thick plate, and like
Okay.
it worked out perfectly, and like all of the parts came off of it almost dead nuts as far as thickness went, and everything worked out really well.
Mike 6 cast aluminum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it comes in fairly flat on both sides already, but I just took I think 10 thou off of one side just to make it perfectly uh, perpendicular to the spindle.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, and then last thing on my plate this week, we've got some orders that I need to wrap up, but I've got more of those grills, and now so because we went to the vacuum fixture on the wiper grills that we make for them, we had been facing the top so that the corner rounder came out really nice. And he placed an order for the hood grills again, and like we used to do those with clamps and just moving them around on the kitty. And he was like, so are you going to move these over to vacuum too? And I was like, well, our vacuum plate doesn't really fit them, like we're probably just going to do them the old clamps. He's like, can you move them over to vacuum? Like I'll wait and like pay for it, it's fine. He's like, the machining quality is like so much better now, like can you do that? I was like, yeah, we can do that. So I'm
Well, at
gonna just
least he notices.
Oh yeah. He loves us. Like he posted on Instagram. He's like, the last thing we made for him was a supercharger bracket for one of his customers, just a one-off. And he was like, source the supercharger bracket from my favorite machining source, blah blah blah. And like, so he really loves us, and we love working with him. But
That's good.
so now I'm gonna make a new vacuum plate as well, and because we've got the 0 point coming in, I'm also going to put the threads in the bottom of it for the 0 point fixtures. So I'll be able to swap that into the big brother or the small brother or wherever and use it. So I'm excited about that as well.
Do you think in the future, down the line, when it's just the two brothers, that you'll ever go back to the old brother and then kind of match the setup you have in the new one with like the subplate and the vices?
I've actually been thinking about that. I would like to. I'd have to see. Well, I need to see like how this all turns out with Orange. Like, I want to see,
Yeah.
what it looks like and if it really fits our workflow. But like, Brad said it well the other day that like he feels, and like I feel like the way that we're doing our new brother right now is like kind of the blueprint for how all of our new machines and possibly the old brother will be in the future.
Yeah.
Probing, tool setting, quick change work holding, all of that, so that you know we're not tripping over ourselves to do stupid things like swapping out vices or setting tools or probing. Like we're even looking at there's a few guys on the brother Facebook group that have put just cheaper Chinese tool setters in their S2As and S2Bs.
Uh-huh.
And like, I need to kind of do some more research into it and figure it out. But if I could add tool setting to that one, that would even be better too.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, I'd like to. It would be really nice to just hot swap everything from one machine to another.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, getting rid of the dumb test, like why should I ever have to retram an device? Like why?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All of that stuff, like even putting, I'd have to do the one in the S2A a little different because like when we do the vacuum pallet in there, we turn the vise sideways on the table,
Okay.
and so I'd have to. I mean, I guess maybe the spacing between the 0 points might accommodate that. I'd have to look again. Anyway, I'd have to look and figure that all out. But um, I'd definitely like to. I think that would be fantastic.
Couldn't you just make like a plate and mount your vise to that? And, I mean, I guess you would just have to buy like the studs, right?
Yeah, yeah, I could do that. I just lose more Z the more that I stack up.
Yeah, that's true.
Like as it is, I was already starting to worry about that a little bit in the Speedio. I'm gonna have to see how it all works out because the fixture plate is like an inch and a half, and then there's the zero plates that are, I think, an inch or something, and then the vise. And like, granted, a lot of people put their vices and things on risers anyway for the Speedio because you lose a lot of Z the way that they're set up. But
Yeah, because they can't touch the table, can they?
no, 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 no. I mean, you can with a really long tool, but like the nose definitely does. It gets. I'd have to look it up, but maybe 5 inches off the table or
Oh,
4 inches
wow.
off the table, something like that. Yeah, because they're set up really for fourth axis work.
Wait, how much do you have for Z travel on your machine?
11.8, I believe, is what it is.
Oh, that's wow. My 15 then seems really tall.
Yeah, I mean we've got I think 18 on the uh, what's it called, the kitty.
Okay.
So it's I mean for what we do, like I've never put a part taller than 6 or 8 inches in there,
Yeah.
so it doesn't really matter for what we do. But you do notice it if you're starting to use really short tools, and like I have yet to even run into it on the Speedio, but on the um, S2A, I've actually like started pocketing soft jaws and had it error out because it was like, oh, you're too far down. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just looked it up. I've got 7.1 to 18.9 from the table,
Okay.
so it's quite a bit up there already. So 7.1 shouldn't be that bad. I'll lose a couple inches off of that, which means I'll still be 4 inches between the nose and the nearest vise, maybe, or 3 inches, something like that. So I'm
What's
not.
like what's the longest tool? Is your probe probably pretty long?
Yeah, right now the probe, we've used a really long half-inch end mill in there for the from steel parts, but yeah, for the most part, like our consistently is definitely the probe.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep everything as short as possible while still being able to cut everything. Um,
Yeah.
you know, BT30 gauge length is everything, so as short as possible while still being usable is the name of the game.
Yeah. How are you liking your dual contact stuff?
I love it. So far we haven't really been able to push it all that hard, but I, I I don't know if it's the dual contact or the high torque spindle, but this thing just like seems like it has power for days compared to other BT30s I've run. Like I
Really?
keep pushing it harder and harder, and nothing changes. Like I think of the highest I've hit at the most aggressive machining I've done is maybe 40% spindle load,
Oh, wow.
maybe 50. No, not even that. It's been like 40. Um, I think I'll probably get up there a little more once I shrink that 3/8 tool in, and actually, I'm right now I'm trying to straddle that whole thing of like, well, I don't want to pull a tool out, I don't want to, pull a part out, all that stuff. Plus,
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing short run, why?
yeah,
Like, why push it?
yeah, exactly. Like I'll push it up to a point, but like, it's still a BT30. I think I still only have 800 pounds of drawbar force or 900 pounds, something like that. So,
Okay.
that there's a point where even high torque and dual contact, like I'll just rip a pull stud out of my spindle, and I'm not going to do that. Like you said, I'm not a high production facility. I'm not doing thousands of parts. I'm not worried about that tenth of a second per cycle.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was actually playing this weekend when I was running. So there was 5 part numbers, and yeah, each of them. I think the most was like 4 parts of one of them, and I did them all in an 8-hour day or 6-hour day,
Okay.
something like that. But I was playing with Brad, guessed the cycle time, and like sending him pictures of up ones, and like it blew him away. Some of them, he was like, I don't know, 4 minutes, and I was like, like 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And so it was fun. That thing still is just insane.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. So what about you? You just got back from Brisk Brick Cascade. How'd that go?
Yeah, so that was a Lego convention in Portland, Oregon, and it's a nice one just because I don't have to fly. It's nice to be able to just drive, and I mean, 3 hour drive's not that bad, and you can bring more because you're not worried about space and confinement of suitcases and all that. So that was good. That was Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. Got back Sunday night, so I mean, overall, did really well. I made some connections, and I did much better than I did last year sales wise. So I couldn't be more happy. And it kind of ties into my next thing. It's like my UV printer is nonstop busy. I don't think I've had more work for my UV printer in a very long time, and it's all for my own stuff with a little bit of customer stuff. But I mean, I've got so much stuff out of stock that I'm constantly restocking and then trying to throw in new stuff, you know. And so I'm really struggling to find a balance of, okay, when do I just let a product sit out of stock or just discontinue it and delete the product, and just make something new to replace it. But then it's like, well, I don't know if the new thing's gonna sell, but I know the old thing will. I just have to make more of it. So it's like this fine line of when do you make 100 of something, and once you're out and you're done and you move on, or do you make another 100 more because you could sell it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how fast you're selling them. Like if you're sitting on stock for a while, that's one of the what lean wastes, right?
Yeah.
Is um, inventory, or like I don't know what it's actually called, but yeah. So I think it depends on how fast you're selling them. Like if you're selling them, you'll have to determine for yourself like what the cutoff is. But if you're selling them quick enough, then it seems like a no brainer. You're printing money at this point. Like everything's done as far as making them. You just need to go through the motions. But if you're making 100 and they're lasting for I don't know 12 months or 14 months or something like that, then it sounds like it's time to move on.
Or even 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, you know your sales better than I do, so you have to decide that on your own, like where that cutoff is. But at some point, I mean, you know what your good sellers are. You know what you need to restock. If you think you can change it slightly and make more money or make more sales, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's just like I know anyone that's listening that has products in that might be struggling with this. It's like sometimes it's not even about like the sales or anything. It's just like I'm just tired of making this. Like I'm tired of looking at it, and it sounds dumb, but it's just real.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I mean,
So
there's also something to be said for like forced scarcity. Like if people
yeah,
know if there's only 10 of them, you know that every single one of those is going to be sold, and then there's going to be 30 people that are like, oh, I wanted to buy that. But if you made 40
exactly.
of them, you might sell 20 of them.
Yep.
So that's I don't know. There's a lot of makers that work on that concept as well. And I don't know. Like it seems like you've got a pretty decent fan base that like buys your stuff pretty religiously. So I mean, I think you want to keep them loyal and keep them satisfied, but it might be worth doing small, short, scarce runs of specialty items and seeing how they go, and that'll be like a good test market for like what you want to add permanently.
That's a good way. Yeah, one of the ways I try to combat the idea of inventory and all that, because I do have inventory, and there's a lot of money that's sitting in the closet that I'm looking at right now as far as figures and whatever. And I try to keep, whenever I restock something, I try to do like, let's say 20 or 50, depending on the product and how, like you said, how quickly it sells. I'm not going to make like 1,000 of something that'll last me 2 years, because I don't know in 6 months if that product will just be dead. And, then I don't have the inventory tied up in the time. So I try to, that's the one way I try to stay lean, is like if I have to restock stuff, I do it in small batches so I don't have to, hold on to spare parts and stuff like that. Um, but some of these stuff, products, it's getting to the point where it's like I don't need to be making 20. I need to be making 100, because that'll, I'm set up. I gotta let's just run more, and yes, I'll have inventory, but they're selling good, so I'll still have to make more in 2 months from now.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have
So
like minimum inventory levels that like trigger a reproduction?
mainly, that's one of the things I want to somehow work into Shopify, and I think I can do that, is when it hits a certain number, like let's say there's 5 left, I'm pretty sure I can have it like notify me somehow. There's a page on like my back end of the website where I can see like low inventory levels, but if I could get it to email me, and then I could somehow make like a Google Sheets, to actually like notify me, because right now it's just like I either get an email from someone saying, "Hey, when's this coming back?" or I just happen to look at the site and I'm like, "There's 0 of these." Like, that's not good.
Yeah, yeah, that would be really not good, especially if people are trying
Yeah,
to buy them. So that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
little
mean, I
things
think,
like that.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, the nice thing too is like a lot of your things are low enough cost that they, like, I feel like for a lot of people, they qualify as an impulse buy. Like if they're like,
Yeah,
oh, that looks cool, I want that. They're going to spend the $5 or $10. Whereas it's not like you're selling like an $80 thing, you know?
yep,
Like that's where people are like, oh, well, I don't know, or I gotta wait till I get paid next. But if it's like, oh, I want to like a $3 or $4 figure and like a few accessories, whatever, that's a few trips to the coffee shop or something like that.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
that's I think that only supports the fact that you can get away with like doing more specialty short run stuff too. Like if you're getting bored with your current offerings, you could definitely do minifigure Monday or something once a month and have like a run of 15 new minifigures that are
yeah,
random or like very niche or something like that.
yeah. That's a good way to put it. And unfortunately, though, the lower runs you do, then the my cost per figure goes up. But then again, if it's limited, I feel like I could charge a premium, and like you said, those hardcore fans would pay that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, people love scarcity, and it's not like any of your stuff is poor quality either. So like, I don't think that people would mind paying a premium for a limited edition thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. So
so
yeah, dealing with that. And then one thing I kind of mentioned, I'm, every now and then I'll do an Instagram live feed or live stream on my BrickTactical MFG, and I did one the other day. Well, other day being like last week, but um, I had a lot of people join, and a lot of people were like interacting, and I thought that was really cool. And I was talking about some of like the products, like machined products I do, like the razors, and then I do the Lego brick magnets, and then I showed some other stuff, and it really got me into like, what other machine products can I offer. And then after doing that live stream, it really wanted me to push to do and actually release some of these, because for example, the razors that I'd done, I just sold those through Instagram. I never actually put those on my website, and I think it'd be kind of cool to, well, what I'm planning on doing is rerunning them. I have a couple different designs and actually posting them on my website, and I'm kind of curious to see how well they do.
I think you definitely should. I love my razor. Like I use it.
Yeah,
It's my go-to package opening tool. It like sits on my counter right when I walk in my house, and I use it. Yeah, like every other day. It seems like.
that's awesome. Yeah, I got a couple different versions that kind of more like a utility knife, but I'll probably post up some pictures shortly because I'm really wanting to kind of push for more machine products if job shop stuff is slow. Um, just because I really enjoy like the product stuff because like it's my product, I get to control everything about it, and I can be nitpicky, and I know for a fact if it can pass my standards, it's going to be great to anyone else.
Yeah, totally. Well, and on the flip side of that, like you know exactly how it goes together. So like if something is a thou out, but it still looks good and still functions and still works, you're not going to scrap it. Where if it's like a customer part and it's out of print, you're like, well, that's scrap, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you're like, well, it looks and functions and everything is normal, and I just like had these tolerances to keep myself in line, yeah, I'm going to keep it and I'm still going to ship it. Like it, you know, the fit and function and form is what matters with your own products.
Yeah. And I have a couple guys local that have some those cheap Chinese like CO2 lasers, and I might want to talk to them and do some like cool foam cutouts and play around with packaging. I really enjoy doing that, and just like there's so many different ways people package products, and I think that just it's just fun to do that and play around with that.
Yeah, totally. I
And
wish I had a laser. I there's a bunch of things that I would love to make. Like every time I send more than like a handful of parts to anodize, I'm always like, they've always taken care of me. They've always made sure that my parts look good. I've never had anything come back with a ding, but I'm also like, but it also could happen and like scrap an order, you know.
yep.
So I would love to make quick packing for stuff like that.
Well, yeah, and I told you this the other, I think last week, but I had a good phone call with Nick, um, Full Throttle MFG, I think it is
Hmm.
his. And then yeah, so he does the spinners and stuff, but then he's also been doing some job shop stuff, and we probably talked for 30 minutes about how he uses his lasers to make foam trays to send stuff not only to customers, but like you were saying, to anodizers, and um, just really good talking about there's a lot to consider when quoting, and he kind of hinted to it as far as like he spends a lot of time on making these foam trays and whatnot, but it's worth it. But it's like that's probably where he's losing some money in his time, so it's like how do you account for that?
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things too. It's hard to like if he lost parts at anodize or any kind of outside processing, it would probably cost him more money than like 10 orders worth of making those foam trays. But like because he's making the foam trays, he won't have a issue because of that problem, and so he'll never know how much he could have lost, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a catch 22. I think that I mean, Dr. Phil is the same way. Like they spend a lot of money making sure that their plating is done right, and like they've seen the other side of that coin where they were down tens of thousands of dollars in parts because it was done poorly or whatever. So like I don't know, that little extra mile is what sets somebody apart. Like I've been at shops before where they've gotten parts back that are dinged, and they're like, oh, go grab a black Sharpie, you know.
Oh geez.
Yeah, and you're like, "What?" It's like, "Just go grab a black Sharpie." It's like, that's not the reason you anodize something. It's usually not color related. Like, it's
Yeah.
properties. Like, what are you talking about? So,
Yeah, that's lovely.
yeah, yeah. And, like, I'm sure a bunch of people listening to this are gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, I've seen that." Like,
Which is sad.
"Oh, 100%." But, like, it definitely happens in this industry, and it's, you know, sure, on some parts, does it actually matter? No, but there are a lot of parts where it really does matter. Like they're looking for that um, resistivity, like it's non-conductive to electricity or something like that. Like or they really need that corrosion resistance.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, Brandon on Instagram, B Sadiswa, he was talking. He had a live talking about one of their what are they called? They make like flight systems, for like people who are like flying on cables for performances.
Okay.
And one of their latches, he was asking advice for a reamer in there, and he was getting them anodized, and the anodize was screwing up the reamed holes for these pins. And I was like, oh, well, just don't anodize those holes. And then it turned out that like, oh, it's TUV certified, which is the I think German certification board. And so like then it would have had to gone through. I want to say he said it was like a 24-hour saltwater bath or something like that again. And like, granted, they're aluminum and they probably wouldn't corrode, but like those are the kind of things where anodize actually matters, like where they're A, being tested for corrosion resistance, and B, where they're being put in corrosive environments. And like that stuff can fail catastrophically.
Well, yeah, especially when there's a human involved.
Right, exactly. And there's been a bunch of stuff like that throughout, the years. There was what was it like? I can't remember what airplane company it was, but they were having issues with airplanes in Europe because they had bonded carbon fiber to aluminum, and like it creates a voltage potential between the two materials, and was actually electrically corroding the aluminum.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, like if you ever bond, there's a lot of different materials that cannot be combined without a voltage potential between them, and it causes, I'm spacing on the correct verbiage, but it creates electrical um, erosion more or less between the two disseparate metals.
Hmm.
And yeah, so there's like, there's ways around it, there's ways to do it right, blah blah blah. But there's a lot of these processes that like on the surface value you're like, that seems like way overkill, or that seems over engineered. But like when you actually dig down into it, you're like, oh, I see. Like,
I see.
yeah, there's a reason for this madness. So yeah, I don't know. It
Yeah, I was watching. I don't know how YouTube's algorithm is, but it's smart because it recommended a really cool video. Have you heard of Smarter Every Day?
yeah. You're talking about the ULF or ULA one that he just
Yeah, the
did.
factory tour.
Yeah,
Yeah, I watched that, and they were doing all the anodizing, talking about corrosion, and I was just like, "Huh, I did learn something."
those sheets. If our listeners haven't watched it, go and watch it. They machine like, I don't know. They had to be what, 15 feet by 25 or 30-foot sheets of 7,000 series aluminum into an ISO grid, and then they used giant. I think he said 25-ton press brakes to
Yep.
like
Yeah.
curve them into a slight curve, and then they like weld what, five of them into a 9-meter diameter tube for the rockets. It was
Yeah.
insane, and like the each of the sheets was a 2-day operation. I was blown away. It
I
was so
was
cool.
dying laughing when they showed a shot after they had faced down one of these sheets, and there's two guys on their hands and knees with WD-40 and towels, making sure there's no chips before they flip the plate over.
Oh, I know, right? And like just the scale, like you see the sheet at first, and you're like, oh, that's pretty big, and then there's two guys sitting on it, like cleaning it. And you're like, oh, that's massive, like
Yeah.
absolutely giant. Yeah, and they're custom like Cincinnati mills, and then they had that whole underground coolant chip
Yeah.
recovery system. Yeah, the whole thing was just insane. It was super cool to watch. I love Smarter Every Day anyway, but that was exceptionally cool. So yeah, I was impressed. That's funny that that popped up in both of our feeds.
Yeah. I'm not subscribed to him, so I was just like, "Oh, this is kinda cool."
I subscribed to him a while ago when he did the poly magnet thing, because those are,
Okay.
if you haven't seen that one too, and you want to be, I mean, magnets are already like black magic, and then you see this company that can print magnetic poles
Whoa.
on magnets and create custom magnets that do weird things. Like it'll blow your mind. Like if you haven't watched it, go watch that one too. It
Okay.
There are so many possibilities, and I have a bunch of them, and I've been like thinking of product ideas, but they're just so interesting. And like they can print custom magnets too. So like they have magnets that are spring magnets where they'll attract each other to a certain distance and then repel at that distance, and so they literally act like an air spring. They have
Whoa.
ones that are like push to lock, so they repel each other, and then you push them together and rotate them 180, and they lock together.
So, like,
uh,
it changes poles once it rotates a certain amount?
well, there's like a almost like a maze looking north and south pole arrangement on each face that they have printed um, on that face. Like they have a way similar to like a 3D printer almost, but they're actually printing. I can't remember what they call them, but they're magnetic pixels more or less.
Is it like just like metal 3D printing kind of thing?
No, no. So they're like they take magnets that are already magnets, and then they use this thing that looks like a 3D printer to change the polar. I don't know how they do it. Like
Change or like
obviously,
block it or something?
I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but it's so worth the watch. I've watched it maybe 2 or 3 times now. It's so cool. Like the one of the magnets they make in there is literally just a rectangular magnet that they print the Smarter Everyday logo on. And so there is north that is the negative of the image and south that is the image or vice versa.
Huh.
And it's just so cool. Like I said, magnets are already such black magic that being able to change them and have behaviors that are non-normal or even is even like, super deep black magic. Like you're just like, what is going on?
That was gonna go into something else I wanted to mention. I did a poll on Instagram like a week or two back. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Um, Talking about would you rather be a job shop or create your own product?
Oh yeah.
And I was kind of blown away by some of the responses. So 14% say they rather run a job shop, and 86% says make their own product. And for those wondering, 19 people voted for job shop, and 121 voted for make your own product.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And so it was interesting. A lot of people swiped up and they were like, why not both? Why not just job shop? Why not product? You can make more. And it's just an interesting debate, right? Because it's like job shop stuff, the way I look at it, it's like someone comes to you normally and they're like basically giving you money. They're like, here is money. Do you want it? Yes or no? And then products, it's like the complete opposite. You have to do all the work. And then it's like, I hope someone gives me money.
Right. Yeah. Well,
It's
and
like,
also like when it comes to machined goods, the more you do job shop work, the better your products become,
yep,
or the easier they become to make, or all of the positives that a job shop teaches you only reflect better on your products. So
exactly.
yeah, I don't know. I like your what would you say your split is between your products and job shop work now?
As far as like, sales wise,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like just rough percentages.
I want to say if we look at last year, because that's when everything kind of took off and I had my machine and it was kind of running full force, I would say it got close to 50-50, but I would say it's still like 60% Lego, 40% machining.
Yeah, yeah. So like you definitely come from the product background, whereas I'm like 100% job shop with no products. And like I would love a product to have that security that you have of like, well, job shop stuff is slow. Let's make some Lego stuff, or
Exactly.
like it. I definitely understand the draw that people have of like, well, it's my own product. Like we talked about earlier, like the tolerances are yours. You're the final inspector. You're the one. It all comes back onto you. There's no like, what idiot engineer put this on the drawing. It doesn't need to be there. If there's something on your drawing that doesn't need to be there, you have nobody to yell at but yourself. So
And some people I could see would love that, but I know a lot of people that, and this is why they're still at day jobs, is they like that, someone telling them what to do or that print saying yes or no type thing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Kelvin kind of touched on that. I don't
Yeah.
remember what was it, like A, B, C, and D employees or something like that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, there are people who don't want to take that step. Like, I mean, we both know owning your own business is not easy. Like
No.
it's nerve wracking, it's stressful, it's incredibly rewarding and tons of fun too. But like it's tough too. Like but I don't know a lot of people that work as a manufacturing engineer like I do that also sweep floors for an entire Sunday. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when you own your own business, until you start hiring people, you're everything. You are receptionist and quoter and machinist and janitor and everything under the sun. So yeah, I don't know. It's it's not for everybody for sure. Like I don't think that, definitely our listeners, like if you don't think that that's the kind of life you're cut off for, don't do it. Like don't feel pressured. Like there's a lot of people on Instagram that, post about it and are starting their own businesses, and that's great for them, but like it's not for everybody, and I don't wish it upon anybody who doesn't want it.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
No, definitely not.
So, I
And like I
mean,
don't think that I'm better than anybody either. That's just like how that's the cloth I'm cut from, is like I enjoy the business aspect of it. I enjoy the growth aspect of it. I don't like I can't say I enjoy the stress of it, but like that risk reward teeter totter that you're constantly on as a business owner, I enjoy that rush, So it yeah, it's not for everybody, but it is for some people, and if it is, then good luck.
yeah, seriously. I mean, it's really just like not even a matter of letting people know like, hey, this might not be for you. It, like you said, it really is like I feel like some people have it or they don't, and it can be really expensive to find out if you have it or not.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like you see it sometimes. Like I'll watch YouTube videos, or not really even YouTube videos. Most of the people on YouTube like seem like they enjoy it, but like I've seen pictures of like work from other shops that you're like, oh, that's garbage. Like, why would they do that? And it's like, well, like manufacturing has gotten, the cost of entry has gotten low enough now that there are a lot of people who are just trying it out, and like who are like, well, maybe this is for me. And 2 or 3 years down the line, they're like, nope, not for me. Like I'm
Yeah.
on to the next. And that takes guts too, like figuring out what's right for you and what's not right for you. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's any lessons learned there, but it's just it, just be honest with yourself. Like it either is for you or it isn't. Like I know that heaven forbid anything happened to my business now, this would not be my last business.
Oh, for sure.
Like I am 100% a serial entrepreneur. Like I will always see something and be like, I can make that better. I can do that better. I've got an interesting take on that. Let me try and monopolize on it, or capitalize on it.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
and that last thing I wanted to mention,
yeah,
as
yeah,
far as products and stuff go, we need to get you a product, like you said. I'm gonna keep bugging you about that.
yeah. I've got, I have one that's been waiting in the wings for a while, and now that I've got the Speedio, one of the barriers on it was making it reliably enough, and like having the memory for it and some stuff like that. It's nothing groundbreaking or anything, but it'd be kind of a cool thing to get done and put on Kickstarter or something like that.
Yeah, you got to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I'll work on it. I've got actually a few little ideas. Speaking of ideas and getting things done, the other thing I had listed here was I guess it's a question for you, and something I had come across. Like, what do you do as far as to-do lists and like getting things done? Like, are you a mental to-do list person? Do you write things down on post-it notes that you throw away? Um, what's your strategy when it comes to that?
It's constantly changing because I don't think I've honestly found what works best for me yet. Sometimes I'll do a post-it note and I'll be like at the beginning of the day, be like, okay, these 5 things, like these need to get done today. Like I need to order parts for these new products. I need to call this person. I need to do this, this, and this. Um, and like, I'll be really upset with myself if I go to sleep and I come back and that post-it note's still on my desk from the day before, type thing. Okay, guys, this is where my audio got messed up in the recording process, unfortunately. So, without further ado, thanks again for listening in on this podcast episode. Thank you guys for buying t-shirts. If you guys want to get one before the pre-order ends by Friday, go to BrickTactical.com. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week with Tony from Air Turbine Spindles. I'm going to leave Dylan's audio in the end of this podcast right after this clip here. So if you want to hear him talk about to-do lists, 3D printing, and all that by himself, feel free to listen. If not, this will be the end of the episode. Thanks again, guys.
The reason I ask is, so I don't know if you ever heard of it, but there is a to-do list style thing called a bullet journal. Have you ever seen that? Well, so that's what I'm getting to. So the concept was that like you actually have a physical journal and you lay out um like every month has a page with like a what they call a future log where you can kind of see the month at a glance of like big things, and then each day has a to-do list and you use different notation for like events, tasks, notes, things like that. And like notes migrate to like a notes page, and then if you don't complete something, you like the task one is usually an open box, like a checkbox. And so like when you're done, you cross it off. If you have to move it to the next day, you draw an arrow, and then you put it on your next day's thing. And it kind of is a good way to show you, how many tasks you're getting done. Are you overloading yourself each day? You kind of see like if you've migrated a task the next day like 8 times in a row, like maybe you either need to put it a month out for your next month's future log, or you need to just cancel it because you're never going to get it done. Um, so it's a great idea, and I tried it for a while, but it required carrying around a little journal. um, and also like I don't know, people get really into it and like decorate them, and like they spend hours a month like making really you like ornate bullet journals. And like I loved the idea of it. I hated carrying around something because a, it's like inconvenient, and b, it's like kind of intrusive. But anyway, I found a bullet journal app finally. I don't know if it's on iOS. I know it's on Android, and it's just called Bullet Journal. But it has all of the exact same things I just said. Like you've got every single day. You can set up habits. The nice thing about like the bullet journal concept is that it's very open, so you can track habits. You can track, I don't know, like there's people with chronic pain that track their chronic pain, and like to see like, oh, is there a you know pattern in things, and it lets you see how much you're getting done. It lets you see all that stuff. And so I found this one, and it is working fantastic because I was using a task app. I can't remember what it's called. I think it was just called Tasks. But it wouldn't like migrate tasks. Like the nice thing about this is that it migrates my tasks every single night automatically. Like anything I don't finish is automatically added to my next day. It keeps stats of like how many I completed, how many I migrated, all that stuff. I can add notes, and it'll keep all my notes separate too. So it just makes more sense for me. And so far I'm loving it. Like I loved when I had the journal because there are so many things that I forget. Or I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to do that. I forgot to write that down. I forgot to set a reminder in my phone. And like now I have all of that stuff in one place. I can tag things into collections and actually go back and look for them, all that stuff. So if anybody out there is looking for one, I think it's just called Bullet Journal. It's like green. I'm trying to find it on the Play Store right now, but yeah, it's not one of those. It's literally just called Bullet Journal. It says Bullet Journal Habit Tracker To Do List, and it's by Dotted Circle is the developer. But so far, so worth it. I think I had like a credit on the Play Store anyway, and so I spent the extra couple bucks and got the premium version that has like you can modify the home screen docked version of it. You can do a couple different other things that aren't available on the free version, but there is a free version, and it's more or less fully functional. So highly recommended. I'm looking for the developer's website right now, but I think it's just on Android so far. It looks like it because I don't see it on. Yeah, they're just an Android developer, unfortunately. Maybe enough people can go bug them and have them ported over to iOS. But anyway, I mean, if you are somebody who carries around like a day planner or something, and you haven't heard of bullet journaling, I'd highly recommend looking into it. It is I found it personally very nice to be able to, because what's nice is like every day, like I might have 5 different notes that I found during the day, a bunch of 3 or 4 different events, and a bunch of tasks, and like because you use different signifiers at the beginning of every single line, you can quickly see like what is what. And I didn't have to like flip back and forth or like have a separate notes pane and a separate events planner and a separate, task manager. So it's all right there. It's all really quick and easy to find. And I thought it was just a good idea. I know it's become kind of, I don't know how to say it. Like there's a lot of people that get way too hyped about it, or like it's like very like Etsy and very, that kind of stuff where it's like, not that Etsy's bad, but like there's a lot of people out there that, they get like way too into something. Like they get kind of manic about it. And it's like, I'm definitely not that. Like I'm not preaching like your life is empty without bullet journal. I'm just saying like for me, this yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that like for me it works really really well on keeping my day organized. I've got a lot on my plate, between my day job and my shop, and like if I don't have some way to write stuff down, I definitely lose track of things that on the surface don't seem all that important. Yeah, yeah, I'm already lacking there, so um, but yeah, that was pretty much all I wanted to ramble on about. Was like I was finally happy to find this app, and yeah, I it's been a long search. It's been a long, a bunch of different apps that I've got downloaded and half filled out. And so if you have Android, if you're one of the few, check it out, and let me know if you like it. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I know Saunders says that he uses voice memos all the time too, which I I feel like they would be good for me because one thing that he says that I completely agree with is like you can have inflection in voice memos, which you can't in text memos. But Grimsmo on their last episode brought up like, well, what if you don't have time to go through them? And like that's totally what would be me, is I'd have like 80 voice memos and I'd be like, I haven't listened to any of these and it's been 3 months, you know? Right. Yeah. I don't want to remember what I was supposed to remember 6 weeks ago. Like this is yeah. So yeah, I don't know. There's I'd love to actually hear from our audience, like how do you guys keep track of notes and how do you keep track of to-do lists and all of that? Like we've got a lot of really intelligent people listening to us, and I'd be interested to hear how they all deal with all that. Yeah, I'm the same way, but my problem is like I get so not anxious about it, but like I hate seeing notifications on my phone that like I'll just say mark as read even if I haven't read them yet, or like even if I haven't, I'll be like, "Oh, that's right, I emailed myself about that." Mark is read, and then like I'll get home and completely forget about it, just so that I don't have that notification sitting in the top corner. Um, yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. One quick update too. I've been using my printer more and more. I did that upgrade board. I don't know if I talked about it on here. I think I did, right? Yeah, so I did that SKR upgrade board. Yeah, I did because I talked I'm spacing on his name again, but one of our listeners, I'm trying to remember what his name was, or I'm trying to find it. I was just talking to him, I feel like the other day. Anyway, he let me know about this SKR upgrade board that's like $30 for the Ender 3. And my printer went from annoying my girlfriend to no end because she hated the sound of it, to like now you can only hear the cooling fans. You can't even hear the steppers on it at all. And it's faster. The surface finish has gone up quite a bit because it's a 32-bit processor instead of an 8-bit. And so I just started printing functional things for the shop. Brad Southard sent me kind of it's TMC Makes. That's what it was. That's right. I remembered Makes, but I couldn't remember the front end of it. But anyway, yeah, it so far it has been like the number one upgrade besides things I've printed for the machine. Yeah, that and I printed. Oh man, there's a cooling fan shroud upgrade, the Pet's Fang, that I printed, that like relocates the filament cooling fan and distributes the cooling air around the nozzle better. And like that, now I can print. I think I either doubled or tripled my PLA printing speed and temperature. And so I'm like at the way high end of the temperature you can print at and the way high end of the printing speed. And like the surface finish is still fantastic. And actually, from everything I've read, printing at the highest temperature for the material enables better layer adhesion between them. So yeah, that thing was free pretty much. I mean, I already had the PETG to print with, and so I printed one with my old cooling fan, and it looked like garbage. And then I put it on the machine, and then used that to print one that looks better. And so that's like, if you have an Ender 3, definitely print that one. I want to print. They have an upgraded one where it goes to a bigger fan, and that's my next printed upgrade at least. But yeah, I've been printing these parametric little stacking boxes. They're more or less like the Schaller bins, but they're parametric, so you just tell it length and width and height, and it the Fusion file spits out that size box. And yeah, they look great. And so far, the ones I printed are really small, so they're for tiny small screws and things like that. But I'm gonna print a whole bunch of different sized ones for our benches right next to each machine, so I'll be able to have all my little fixture plate clamps and mighty bites and all that stuff pretty well organized. Yeah, and then yeah, I think I don't think I can quite fit. So the reason we bought the second shelving unit that's not assembled yet at my shop is we want to redo our material rack, which I have a picture on my Instagram of, and it just looks terrible, and it still looks exactly like that. Like it's literally just every time we have a raw piece of material, it just gets like literally tossed onto the shelf on top of a bunch of other crap. Um, and so these new shelves are longer and deeper than the ones I currently have. And so instead of the mesh bottoms, I'm going to get some either plate stock or wood or something cut up for the bottoms and then make dividers. And so I want, here's 1/4 inch stock, here's 3/8 stock, here's 1/2 inch stock. And like, I'm not going to subdivide it any more than that. But at least if I know the thickness of the plate, like I can narrow my looking a little bit. Like right now I'm all over the place and just throwing everything everywhere until I find what I need and then throw the mound of material back onto the shelf. So I don't think I can print the dividers. Oh, it's so dumb. And there's a bunch of pieces on there that are too small really to be usable, so I'll just toss all those into the recycling bin that we have. um, but yeah, I think my printer's just too small to print those dividers. Otherwise, I would print those as well. But maybe I'll try it or piece them together out of 2 pieces or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's really nice to be able to print like things at home. Interestingly enough, I used my leftover powder coating tape from the Saunders, tape and glue method. Yeah, yeah. So I used the leftovers of that as bed adhesion tape because I found out that it's PET, which is like what they make some 3D printer beds out of, or they coat metal sheets in PET to make it adhesive. And like between the tape and putting a little bit of like Elmer's glue on the top, or the glue stick, there have been parts already that I have broken the part trying to get it off the bed. It adheres so well. Yeah, I nearly punched myself in the face the other day trying to pull one off. But yeah, so that's the quick 3D printing upgrade update. I'm loving it. It's super awesome and it's only getting better. It's really cool to be able to print upgrades like so quickly. And now that I have that new board, I trust it a lot more. it's quieter, it's better, it's all those things, and I can add auto leveling sensor pretty soon here, a color screen if I want to. It takes upgrade or firmware updates a lot easier, all that stuff. So it's just a better board overall. Yeah, and like I said, I think it's $30 or $32 or something like that on Amazon. Yeah, and it's literally plug and play. Like you unplug everything from the Ender board, plug it back into the new one. They swapped the fan leads as the only thing, so you just have to read the instructions more or less and just plug fan one into fan two and fan two into fan one, and then you're done. It's that easy. But yeah, I think that's about all I got. It was a busy week and things are going great. We're staying really busy, but it's yeah, things are just trucking along. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, and I'm glad you had a good brick cascade. Awesome, man. Well, I think that's probably a good place to end. So everybody remember, this is the last week for the pre-order. We're going to close that thing on Friday. So if you, I mean, a lot of you guys have ordered shirts, and thank you so much. It's a super cool to see the support. B, it is support for us. We really appreciate it. It's just going to go back into making cool things for the channel. We've got stickers coming out. I've actually got samples sitting right behind me that I've got to order some up today and get them over to Payton. I've been trying a few different suppliers too. Like I ordered the holographic pre-order from Sticker Mule for my stickers, and ended up having similar issues to what Brandon had. He had a bunch of stories on that, and so they're shipping me another batch. We'll see how they turn out, but if the second batch look okay, I'll send you some of them, and we can kind of drop them like golden tickets in the t-shirt pre-order, and surprise some people. Um, and then yeah, we'll have with intolerance stickers. I'm thinking after the t-shirts are done and we stock some t-shirts, maybe we can do some sticker packs on your website. A with intolerance sticker, my sticker, and your sticker. And yeah, those should be really easy to ship out for you compared to the t-shirts. Call your friends over, order some pizza. Be like, pizza t-shirt packing party. I'm not paying you, but there's free food. Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. Those shirts were the one I got was really nice quality though, so I think it'll be worth everybody's weight. And again, we really appreciate it. Stick with us next week. We got Tony from Air Turbine Spindles, which is great. We've got a little possible collab podcast coming up with the guys from Late Lathe Night, Dennis and Eric, which should be a lot of fun. We gotta kind of figure out scheduling and all that with uh, them being up in Canada and different time zones and all that. But that should be a lot of fun. So stay with that. And if you guys don't listen to those guys, head over and definitely check them out. They're really funny to listen to. And yeah, we got some good guests coming up this month and next month. And we really appreciate all the support and all you guys listening.